psychological wellbeing practitioners at Brent Talking Therapies. And
I'm Sarah. I'm another psychological wellbeing practitioner just down the road at Brent Talking Therapy.
Yeah, so today's topic is self-esteem, and I guess we'll do some housekeeping before, so like some rules before we start the whole thing really. So yeah, everything we do discuss will be kept confidential, but just be aware that anything that you do share, share it if you feel comfortable to do so. You don't have to share anything that you don't feel comfortable doing. Just, remembering to be supportive, listening to each other, being respectful about each other's opinions, and everything that we do discuss, like the evidence does show that people who practice some of the skills, it is super effective for them, and then you start to see those changes. And if you need to take a break, just let us know and we can stop wherever. You guys have done the registration, so thank you for doing that. And yeah, reach out for any questions. We will have some time at the end to do some questions as well. The first is more of like an icebreaker activity. So the blank sheet of paper that you guys have, if you can write down some strengths, please do make sure that you can have at least one strength, and then an achievement that you're proud of. It can be anything, as even if it's small or big. Maybe a compliment that you've received that made you smile, and just something that you love about yourself. It doesn't have to be all of them, but I would say have at least one strength down on the paper.
I think we'll give maybe about 5 minutes for that.
Yeah.
If you guys need any help or you have any questions, just let us know. But everything is up there.
Should we be doing it as well?
Should we do it? No,
we can. Couldn't think of anything for the other ones. Okay. I think I'm shy.
Are we okay? You're doing well.
Is everyone done? Yeah?
Yeah? Okay.
If you guys feel comfortable, you can share maybe a strength or an achievement or whatever you
Just
feel
one or two.
comfortable.
Anyone want to share?
No?
I think I think calm makes it better. Calm as a strength. Yeah. Well, I come back to weakness. It's better to be calm.
Yeah?
Better treat people well.
Yeah, just being
That's a good one.
kind. Anyone else? You don't have to share if you're not comfortable to do
I
so.
found it difficult answering something you love about yourself.
And did you manage to do it?
I've got question marks on there.
Alright.
I'm pretty much the same.
So
So,
I think the first three are a little bit easier. I think you can find scenarios, friends and family is in terms of achievements, a compliment that received that made you smile, just a thank you, or compassion in terms of understanding, and comments, phrases that, especially when it's not expected, it's
Yeah.
kind of
takes you by surprise. Yeah. It's good. Yeah. I think love is quite an intense word, so when you say something you love about yourself, it's quite tough to think of something. But anyone else?
I agree, that was the hardest one. Something
Yeah.
you love about yourself, that was a difficult one.
What about something you like about yourself?
Same thing.
Same thing. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's a good thinking point. I think it does get you thinking about what your own definition of what that might be is. And I think it's one of those things that until someone asks you, you don't really get a chance to think about it. So definitely something to keep in your mind as we go through this session, and maybe by the end, if you can maybe come up with something or maybe have a better definition of it, then we've done our job.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess it's not something we go about our day thinking about. So, yeah, that was just a icebreaker, really. Self-esteem, I guess it could be defined as an opinion that we have of ourselves, things that we appreciate about ourselves. It can be an opinion that is influenced by the way we think, feel and act. So your value, your worth is, I guess, defined by that as well. Some questions for you guys to reflect on and think about. Do you feel self-esteem is measurable? If so, how? Any kind of reflections on that? Do you think we can measure self-esteem? Is there a way we can think, oh, okay, that equals to self-esteem?
Scales. These are self-esteem scales. Just that definition of self-esteem, is there parallels to confidence or self-doubt? I'm trying to answer that question
there's no wrong answer here, so it's
There's
really just
no-
about
There's
opening
no right
up
or
for
wrong.
you.
What's the textbook definition of self-esteem?
That is kind of what we have
That,
there
yeah.
right now.
We've added
So-
our little,
Opinion we have of
yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
we've added a bit of a CBT approach to it.
Yeah,
So,
I think is self-esteem measurable? I think it will go up on what we just spoke about, kind of thinking about, when people think of self-esteem, you want to think about what do I love the most about myself? But when we can't do that, what do we think of? So when we asked you, what is it that you love about yourself, or is self-esteem measurable? What would you say to us on your own definition? There's no wrong answers here.
Let's come back to that.
yeah. Yeah.
If I get a warm, glowing feeling inside me, I'd say I've got good self-esteem.
Okay. Yeah. I think everyone measures it very differently. So, like you said, there's no right or wrong answer here. Do you feel it's dependent on external factors, or is it on performance? I know a lot of the times people do measure it using like their performance or just social approval.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you
Right.
feel it's fragile? It is. I guess this is what a healthy self-esteem would look like by definition. Just having a positive outlook on life, thinking very positively. You said feeling confident, just confidence in general. Saying what you want and how you feel. Sometimes that can be looked into as high self-esteem. Having a balanced outlook of yourself as well, taking care of yourself. That could mean that you have a higher self-esteem because you're taking into consideration what you want and what you need for yourself. Not necessarily comparing ourselves to others. That can be seen as high self-esteem. not dwelling on the past experiences. As humans we can do that, but not constantly dwelling on those. Having healthy boundaries with people, so things like being able to say no, or just being very clear with what we need. Taking responsibility for our actions, so if we've done something wrong or we feel we could have improved somewhere, just taking responsibility for that, and then believing that you are good enough and that you deserve to be happy. I think the word deserved is something that could be emphasized on a bit more. So some people tend to feel the opposite, they don't deserve to be happy, so the opposite of that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's some of the things that could be looked at as high self-esteem. Anything that you'd like to add there or you don't agree with? No?
Do we agree with all of that? Yeah?
So now the opposite. So signs of low self-esteem. People that view their future really negatively, they rely heavily on other people's approval. So that reassurance from others is like a main factor in this. Decision making is really difficult. They lack that confidence. Avoiding taking risks, so taking calls where you feel, okay, maybe I could do this, and that can lead to a negative consequence, but could also lead to a positive one, just still taking it regardless. It can be difficult to recognize as well for people that do have low self-esteem. It often feels like, there's a natural way of seeing the world, but it can be really challenging to do that. And for some people, it can be really painful as well to go through, what it is that we think of ourselves. Just even reflecting on those can be really difficult things to do. So, yeah. Anything else that you'd like to add here that we've missed out on? Anything that you don't agree with, or do we agree with all of it?
I think it's like on the scale when it comes down to like low self-esteem, depression.
Okay, that's a really interesting point.
Before you hit sort of clinical depression, sort of like, these are some of the precursors still. Right?
Yeah. So the rumination then leading to
that's
depression.
An interesting point. We will touch upon that in a couple of slides. That's a really interesting point into how, what self-esteem is and whether that ties into mental health difficulties as well, and the correlation between that. But thank you so much for bringing that up.
Anything else? Anyone else that wants to add anything here? Any other signs of low self-esteem that we missed out on that you feel you maybe noticed in others or just around in general?
Negative thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there a time? I'm just trying to process like low self-esteem. I might just have a bad morning. Does that mean I've got low self-esteem? And then, if it's a sustained period of time, is that then low self-esteem?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the dot there. So we all have lapses in our confidence and changes in how we feel. I think the way we would define low self-esteem is when it's continuous and it becomes chronic and it's something that impacts your everyday quality of life. Something that is stopping you from doing things, or you are changing things that you maybe used to do before. You're not doing them anymore because of the way that you feel. So yeah, that you've hit the nail on the head there. But that's the really important distinction to make.
Yeah. Even when it comes to other things, the main thing to look at here is impact. How is it impacting you? Like my colleague said, is it impacting your day to day? Is it making you avoid things? Are you doing things to kind of make sure that it's easier for you? We call them safety behaviors, things like that. So that could then lead into understanding whether we have that low self-esteem. It's being aware of it constantly in our day to day. Yeah, so what do you feel, there are some examples on this slide, but I just want to see, what do you guys feel would look like self-esteem, in a person? If you were to see someone with low self-esteem, what would be the things that would be going on for them? Or if you were to speak to someone? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, there are some of the things that you guys have said on here as well. So again, just going back to the first thing, lack of boundaries. When you speak to someone, when you can sense that they lack those boundaries of making that decision, for example, or just people that do over apologize, and it can be seen as a positive thing, but actually in this case, it can also be a sign of low self-esteem, because you have that outlook on the decisions you've made, or the way you've spoken to someone, or the way you've done something, for example. It could also be unmet needs, and I feel like this is something that people miss out on quite a bit. Like, it's not just needs of others, but needs of yourself. Missing out on things that you feel are good for you can also lead to the low self-esteem, for example. So things that we enjoy doing, if we stop doing those, avoid those, we don't tend to make decisions that feel would be beneficial for our day-to-day. That is unmet needs. Just that fear of failure. It's always normal to have that, little sense of fear of failure, but over a period of time when you base your decisions off of that. So yeah, those are some of the things really. Yeah.
Sorry, just going to say, that negativity, I think a lot of times is decision making. Negativity does affect decision making.
Yeah, the negative thinking style, you mean? Yeah. It's almost like a domino effect. Like, if you start to think negative, ruminate over that, then that leads into the decision making, and then how we think of ourselves, and then that will then eventually lead into other things.
It's really important to remember here as well, though, like we said earlier, we do have lapses in how we feel, and our mood will change based on what we're going through, and that's only human nature. The key thing to remember here is how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the world is completely valid. What we focus on in the type of therapy that we do within our service is the behaviour that you exhibit in response to how you feel. So we can feel how we feel, but what you do about that, that's a different story. Yeah?
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, just that feeling of loss of control. Yeah, it can feel like that. I guess self-esteem develops over time, and there's a few different ways it can develop. It can develop through like childhood and adulthood experiences, things that we've been through in the past with our relationships, with our families, the foundation that's built in those childhood experiences. It could be your family, friends, teachers, life events. It can literally be anything and everything that you can think of. Anything that's not there that you would like to add into. Do you feel there's anything else that develops that self-esteem, or that pretty much covers it? Sorry?
Positive events would make you more confident, negative events.
Yeah. So these all kind of develop the self-esteem in general. Just a question really. So do we all agree that it's important to have like a high self-esteem or a healthy self-esteem? Yeah. Maybe if you can think of a time when you're having high self-esteem and you feel that's positively impacted your life, what was the significance of that? What was there in that moment that you feel stood out to you? Can you think of a time that you felt, okay, I feel like this has positively impacted my life and it's kind of improved my self-esteem?
When something did happen, you may motivated to keep going. Rather dominant by a snowball effect.
Yeah.
Ability to know everything, that's why it's significant. It motivates to do more, etc.
Yeah. What do you feel was the significance there? Just something positive happening, or was there anything else you feel going on at that time that pushed that a bit more?
Reaction to the positive feeling of other people as well.
Yeah, we're humans at the end of the day. Like, things do impact us all very differently, but the foundation of it is that it does impact us. But it's just about finding, what it is that's positively impacting us and what was happening at the time that made it so positive, and actually reflecting on that can be really helpful. So yeah, just something for you guys to think about. You don't have to all share, but something to reflect on really.
Okay, so now that we've kind of touched upon a little bit of what low self-esteem is, it's really important that we equally understand the importance of high self-esteem, so we know what it is that we're working towards, what is the standard that we want to be operating at. So this is touching on your previous point. So self-esteem has a direct relationship with our overall well-being. Low self-esteem in itself is not a mental health problem, but it is really, really closely linked, okay? So some of the signs of low self-esteem can also be signs of a mental health problem. So for example, feeling hopeless or worthless, blaming yourself unfairly, hating yourself and worrying about being unable to do things. So they do tie in, they do overlap in multiple areas. So it's not to say someone has a mental health problem, they're going to definitely have low self-esteem or vice versa, but there are areas where they do tie in. Having a mental health problem could also cause you to then have low self-esteem further down the line, okay? And it might be harder to cope or take steps to improve your self-esteem if you do struggle with your mental health, okay? So this is why it's really important that we know what high self-esteem is, so we know what it is that we don't want to be at, and what instead we want to be working towards. Does that make sense? So, do I have a low self-esteem? Like you said earlier, occasional episodes of self-criticism does not mean you have low self-esteem. However, if these feelings of self-hatred are chronically present and they are kind of impacting various areas of your life, this could be your work, your relationships, your career, social circles, then it might be really helpful to consider seeking support to again think about how you can collaboratively work with someone to think about how you can improve certain areas of your self-esteem to kind of prevent it from becoming, in the long term, something a bit more difficult to deal with. Okay? There is a quiz that you can do if you guys wanted to go online, and there's a couple of them online tests that you can do. This is a really good one that you could try that can give you an indication if you're not sure yourself of whether you might need some extra support or not. Okay?
Can I just ask a question? You know, in terms of self-esteem and self-criticism and impacting various areas of your life, you know, I have a career, I have a family, so I compartmentalize like different.
Yeah.
Can you have self-esteem, you know, low self-esteem in some of those areas, but be fine in other areas? So whether it's career, relationship, work.
Yeah, definitely. You can. So low self-esteem isn't like a blanket thing that kind of, once you've got it, it applies to every area of your life. What it is with low self-esteem, what we say is, once you have started to experience low self-esteem and it starts to affect every area of your life significantly, then that's what we would define as low self-esteem. Anything before that, we would say these are, you know, periods of low confidence, maybe self-criticism, but based on how much the impact increases, that's more likely it is to be self-esteem. Does that make sense? Okay, so you guys all wrote down some strengths at the beginning. I want you to think about how have I used this strength to create something positive? Who has been impacted by this strength and what feedback or reactions have I noticed from others? So we'll do the first one all together. So how have I used this strength to create something positive? So having a look at what you've written down, does anyone have any ideas that they want to share for how they've used it?
I put kind of creativity, so I think I'm quite creative, even though I'm an accountant. But I've used that to share information in a creative way as opposed to just numbers.
Yeah. So you've almost personalised it to you, like you know what works for you.
And like you're really adaptable as well, being able to use one thing to apply it to different areas of your life. It sounds really good. Does anyone else have anything else? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. So thinking about the strength that you're thinking about, who has been impacted by this strength? So think about what you've said, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's your friends, whether it's your family, who has been impacted by this strength of yours?
And again, really tough to think about because it's not something that we do on a daily basis. I think as humans we can be very self-critical, so actually doing the opposite is really tough.
And this really does pick up on the fact, like what you said earlier, it's an automatic way of viewing the world when it comes to low self-esteem or having low confidence. We're so used to kind of following that thought process that when someone stops it and says, hold on a minute, let's think about some positive, it becomes really, really difficult. But I hope that also highlights the importance of it, of breaking that cycle. Has anyone got any ideas that they want to share for that second question?
Or maybe any feedback for the final one, if you can't think of anything for the second question, maybe any feedback that you've heard from others that you feel you've noticed.
I think someone said earlier about getting compliments, like someone saying thank you, you know, different things like that. Even something as small as that. Has anyone noticed anything?
Your as well.
That's a really good one.
That's quite good to know that you want to make things worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other reflections apart from the questions here on self-esteem in general, or no?
It's just common because like, we don't reflect enough.
Yeah.
It is, it's good to stop and think, but with our busy lives we hardly get a chance to do that, so it's good to actually...
I think a lot of this in terms of the impact, there's almost we're looking for approval from others.
Mm-hmm.
So that example that I said around, I share my information in a creative way, it helps those people understand a complex problem, and the feedback that I get that fuels me doing more of it is that positive confirmation of I really understand, that was really good.
Yeah.
But now, again, that was no self, but it's in the reverse, as you can spiral up, you can quite easily spiral down.
Yeah. You can see it in a positive way, but you can also view it in a negative way. Whereas for yourself, it sounds like you take on that approval as, oh, okay, I've done a good job. Maybe I could do more of that to help my colleagues and help others.
Definitely.
But you could switch it around and turn it around on its head and be like, oh, okay, I'll only do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's always really important to kind of focus on the positive side. I think if we find ourselves focusing on the negative, it's really important to stop and think, is it helping me right now to focus on the negative? Am I feeling any better? Or am I just feeling worse by focusing on the negative? So part, again, of our approach, the CBT approach, is really breaking that down and coming face to face with what it is that you are thinking and how that is making you feel. And by breaking that down, we are really able to see the connection between our thoughts, our feelings, how that makes us feel physically. We might feel more tired, more lethargic, and how that impacts, the way that we go about our everyday life. Do we avoid activities because of it? Do we maybe cancel on that plan to go out with our friends because of it, So what do we do in response to the way that...
I don't know if it's but just in the openness of this environment, are people half glass full? Do they have more high self-esteem, and people half glass empty have low self-esteem?
What you mean in terms of stats and what overall?
The extrovert versus the introvert, the positive person versus everything's everyone's against me.
That's a really tough one to answer, actually, because you'd be looking at...
And it's a really interesting question, but I think that speaks to the individuality of every person, because you might assume that someone who's really extroverted and very positive, is doing really well and has really high self-esteem. But that person might then go home and think, right, that one thing that I did wrong, and then they spiral off on that. So it's really important that we don't judge by sometimes what is apparent. When it comes to how you feel about yourself, that's something that's really personal. So I wouldn't say we will be able to make that kind of a judgment, because we do see the spectrum of it.
And it also goes down to that question that we had at the beginning, like how would you measure self-esteem? We could measure it in a million different ways, and there's no right or wrong here. So it's just one of those things, like my colleague said, you may be looking at someone that is very extroverted, especially people that are like perfectionists, things like that. You might be seeing them as, oh, doing everything so perfectly, but they might go home and be like, well, I could have done this differently, or I could have done that differently. So people do tend to mask it really well and not necessarily have that at the forefront. So it's just about how we measure it, really.
A really interesting point, though. It's a good thing to kind of think about, because it helps you to really think about how you show yourself as well. Like, what are we doing, and what does that look like to other people as well? We're just going to move on now to thinking about some tips and exercises to improve our self-esteem. Just before we go into that, does anyone have any ideas or maybe things that you already do to improve your self-esteem, or things that make you feel good about yourself?
Or you intend to do, things that you intend to do if you're not doing them already. It's a really good one.
Take a break from social media.
Yeah. Not mindlessly scrolling, that's a good one. You might already be doing them. Sometimes we can't really necessarily pinpoint what it is that's working, but it's working. So it's good to reflect on what is working and focus on the strengths and how we're...
And there might be something you're doing you can share with everyone that maybe they might not have heard of, or they're not doing.
Or anything that you've noticed other people doing that you feel, oh, that's a really good thing. Like that shows that, you know, you're taking care of yourself.
I just learned a technique this week about just writing it out. And just, that I was trying to have conversations and it was winding me up more, but it was just me time and the process of just writing it out felt that it was coming out my system.
Yeah, I think if we had a jar for how many times you've said that to people, write it down, write everything out, just put it onto paper. If it's in your mind, it's not going to make sense. It doesn't matter how much you think it. Pick up a pen and pick up a paper and write it out. Because we say this, I think, on a daily basis, at least 15 times. It's a really, really good one.
Yeah, it might sound really simple and really silly actually at the beginning, because it's like, okay, well, what is writing it down going to do for me? But because we have it in our minds, it's very hard to actually pinpoint what we're even thinking, because it's so cluttered up. But there might be like different areas of your life that you're thinking about. But putting it down on a piece of paper means, oh, okay, I'm thinking about X, Y, and Z. And it doesn't mean you have to do something about it there and then about the thought, but at least you know what you're thinking about and you're able to reflect on it a bit better.
And you're not doing anything, you know, you're not using too much energy. All you are doing is taking what is already dancing around in there and putting it onto paper and looking at it for what it is. And that is one of the simplest ways you can face what you are thinking and avoid that mental process of shelving it and just putting it to the side and trying to ignore it. Put it on paper. It's a really good one, and journaling is straight up there with one of our first ones. So straight away, strengthening and balancing your emotions, mindfulness and journaling, practicing gratitude, and stop comparing yourself with other people. So mindfulness, has anyone heard of it before?
I think you said meditation earlier,
Mindfulness is a really good one. You can pop onto YouTube, there's some good, really short clips, I think as short as 3 minutes, to longer ones up to 10 minutes. Simply taking that time for yourself, again, taking your thoughts, identifying them, what are they, and just letting them go. It's as simple as that, right? Journaling, we've just gone through it, amazing, can't recommend it enough. Please do it, write it down.
And everyone's got a different way of journaling. It doesn't have to be that, you know, you might do, you know, Dear Diary, or someone else might do something else. Like, it's not, it doesn't have to be the same. You use whatever works for you, as long as you're putting it on paper.
I know people who take pictures of things that they like or they appreciate, and then they just write something about it, or something that they did today that they really enjoyed, take a picture, keep it. And in the age of technology, you can just keep that all on your phone and whatnot. But I still stand by it. Pen and paper.
Pen and paper,
Pen and paper. Get it. It's a different level of satisfaction to typing it on your phone. Practicing gratitude. So being thankful, you know, thinking about what it is we do have, what we can do, as opposed to what we don't have and what we can't do. Something as small and as simple as that really shifts your mindset just for that period of time. Stop comparing. Stop comparison with others. Do we find that that's something that we do a lot? So experience low self-esteem. We do find ourselves having a standard that we are comparing ourselves to. Now, it might not even be other people. We might have an expectation of ourselves that is up here, and because we're not meeting it, we're disappointed. Right? So that's a really important thing that we need to funnel out at the beginning. Stop comparing yourself with other people or other standards. Focus on here and now, what is going on and what you can do.
Especially with nowadays with the technology and social media and this and everyone just putting out their like best selves. It's hard to not do that, but also we need to be mindful of that.
Another one is take control of your life. Just take control of it. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Actionable goals per week. So set yourself a goal. Like I said, not some really high expectation, but if I say, by Sunday, I am going to have cleaned the entire living room. That's a goal that I've set myself by the end of the week. Now, how do I do that? It's quite a big goal. We're working, we've got different things to do. I break it down into manageable steps. So I might say, today is the dusting, tomorrow is the vacuuming, next day I'm taking a break, day after I'm picking up whatever's left over, day after I might put everything where it needs to be, right? I'm breaking it down so it's more achievable for me. I'm not setting myself a really heavy task and saying this needs to be done by this day at this time, right? So break down your tasks a little bit more. Think about how we can make things more achievable for ourselves. You guys might already do it in your everyday lives, whether it's your home tasks or your work tasks. You know, if we've got a deadline to prepare for or an event to prepare for, we're going to make a plan and we're going to think about what we need to do when it needs to be done by. So we need to apply that to these areas of our lives as well. And just give ourselves the chance to see how we might feel at the end of the week. Yeah?
And not doing that, actually, when you find yourself setting a really large goal, you might not reflect on it as a large goal, but then not being able to achieve that will then lead to, you know, feelings of disappointment. It's not because you weren't able to achieve it, it's because maybe you've not put it down to like smaller steps that then make it easier for you to achieve it. So it goes back to, you know, you're setting yourself that expectation that isn't super realistic. So just thinking about that, really.
Feed your passions and your interests. Identify your hobbies and your likable activities and allocate time for this every week. Having a balance of activities during the week is so important in maintaining a stable mood. You need to make time for the things that you enjoy. So yeah, we might go to work, we go to our appointments, we might pay the bills. We're doing what we need to do, we're doing what we have to do, we're doing what we do every day. But are we doing what we enjoy? Are we doing something pleasurable to balance out all of the hard work that we have to do, right?
Yeah.
So identify your hobbies. What is it that you like? What is it that you enjoy? What is it that makes you feel that feeling inside nice and warm and fuzzy? And how can we kind of incorporate that into our everyday routine? And make time for that every week. And like my colleague said earlier, it goes back to kind of thinking about how you deserve that. You know, you deserve that time to yourself. And by doing that, you will strengthen your self-esteem because you're saying, hold on a minute, everybody stop. 1 hour today, I'm going to sit here and I'm just going to read a book, or I'm going to paint, or I'm going to scroll on social media, or what I want to do, this is for me.
Yeah.
Right? And that will do wonders as well.
And you might have a busy week, it's not always easy to make time for that as well. But even if you have like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is that you can do that's manageable for you, try and allocate that time. I think allocating time works really well. When we tend to not do that, we just go off of, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, or I'll maybe, you know, I'll go for a walk tomorrow, but we don't know what time, we don't know when we're going to do this, how we're going to do this. Maybe making it really specific really helps as well.
If we think about our week that's gone by, and we think about the things that we've done, think about how many of those things you've done because you've had to do them. If you didn't do them, something bad would have happened, or you would have created a headache for yourself. How many times are we making time to do activities that we do because we want to do them? Right? The next thing here will be reflect on motivating experiences. So we've been doing this, I think, as part of our activities a little bit. Recall motivating and confident moments in your life. Reflect why, and I've never heard that word before, and include them into your routine. Okay? So, like we've just done, taking those few minutes to stop and think about those questions. Take a minute for yourself. Think about what it is that you have done. Right? There's a thing, I don't know if you've done it, when we're at work, my supervisor always tells me, make an inbox in your email for the happy emails. All the good things that come through, you know, the things that come through from people, colleagues, whoever, put that in the happy inbox, and whenever you feel down, go and open it. Because if you were to ask us how many angry emails we get, we would list them for you. But if you ask us about the happy ones, it's a distant memory. Because we don't make them important enough, but they are important. So make your own happy inbox within yourself and think about the good thing, think about the motivating moment that you want to look back on and say, you know what, I did quite good over there. Only I could have done that, no one else could have. Do it, you all deserve it. Okay?
This is part of taking control of your life, right? Because we have all of these other factors controlling our life, where it's, you know, if it's work, family, relationships, extracurricular, whatever it is. Taking control means actually I'm going to choose to focus on this today rather than focus on everything else that's coming my way. So that's the easiest way to take control. Obviously easier said than done, but the more you practice it, the more you do it, the more you get into a habit of doing it, and before you know it, it's part of your routine.
Everything is a skill, like we said right at the beginning, everything is a skill. No one got on a bike and started riding a bike straight away. No one got behind the wheel of a car and started driving straight away. We all had to take lessons, we had to fail at some point, we had to go ahead and keep trying again and again and again. And we became better each time that we did it. So the same way we practice these skills, we continue to try it day after day, and before you know it, it will improve and it will become better. The same way we all started riding a bike, I hope.
And it can be painful as well, like we were saying, and it can be difficult actually to do this. I give this analogy all the time about the gym. When you go to the gym and you're really sore for the next day or a week, 2 weeks, whatever it is, anything new that you do or introduce to your body, you're going to find it difficult at the beginning, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's an unhelpful thing. It might be a helpful thing. It's about really practicing it.
So instead of focusing on the 2 weeks you didn't go gym, focus on that one time you did go. Right? You did it once, you can do it one more time, you can do it another time after that. Right? It might sound silly, but this is what works, and this is what we need to give ourselves time to be able to think about and to do.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I was saying, achievable goals as well.
Mm-hmm.
Going to gym might not be achievable, but maybe for 20 minutes walk might be.
Yeah.
I think I get that.
Exactly. It could be whatever works for you. Gym might work for some people, might not work for others. It's whatever works for you. It's not about, and I think this comes back to like us comparing ourselves to others. It might work, like, some people might have a set of things that work for them, and that's really good because they've got an idea of what's helpful for them. But it doesn't have to be the same for you. You find things that are more helpful for you.
Yeah, and
but
I think
all very different.
Yeah, and it's embracing that. We are all different people. We weren't all created to be exactly the same as one another. We are all different, so different things will work for each other. We need to embrace that instead of saying, I need to be like that person, or I need to do what they do, or why can't I do what they do? Turn it around. What can I do instead?
Yeah.
Right? You will have your strength that maybe other people won't. Other people might have strength that you might aspire to, which is fine. If there's a certain thing you want to do, a skill you want to adapt, make a plan. Think about how you can work toward that through your achievable goals. But let's not set ourselves that expectation that, if we don't achieve exactly that particular standard, we've done nothing right. Yeah?
One thing that I find really works well is like doing small things and making those small changes consistently every day is a lot more beneficial than making those big changes, like us saying, we want to do this and that's it. So making those small changes but being consistent with it. The key is consistency. So find what works for you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can anyone think of anything else based on what we've spoken about in terms of different tips or tricks to improve your self-confidence, improve your self-esteem?
I have one for negative thoughts actually. I think when we have a negative thought, actually turning it on its head and actually thinking of the positive one, finding an alternative thought for it can be really helpful. So it's like, okay, fine, I have this negative thought, but now how can I make this more positive? What's stopping me from thinking in that way instead of this way?
And it goes to how much we give to those negative thoughts, Why are we giving 70% to the negative thought and 30% to the positive? Why? Think about it, stop and think, be like, wait a minute, but do I really believe in it that much? Let's take it back, let's think about it. How can I think of this in a different way, right? So
yeah, like what's stopping you from thinking about it in a more positive way? It's us having control over our thoughts rather than letting our thoughts control us and just drift us away from what's actually in front of us. So
yeah, it's really as simple as, for example, if a friend walks past you in the street and doesn't say hi. So let's say my colleague walks past me, she doesn't say hi to me. Am I going to turn around and say, block and delete, I'm never talking to you again, I'm never doing a workshop with you again? Or do I say, hold on a minute, it's really dark, maybe she didn't recognize me, or maybe she didn't see me. Let me check in on her tomorrow and I'll see what happened, right? Just like that, I've turned a completely different situation around. I've turned it around, I've thought about maybe the alternative thought, and I don't have anything weighing on me right now. I'm not thinking, what did I do wrong, right? Instead, I'm thinking, maybe, you didn't see me. And I forgive you.
And you don't have to do it in that moment when you're getting the negative thought. It's good to write it down. Say to yourself, okay, I'm going to come back to this, and then write it down. Maybe you can write down the positive thought, and that will drill into you a little bit more. So it's not about dealing with it there and then. You can come back to it.
Definitely. Like we said, your feelings are valid. There's a reason I got annoyed straight away when she walked past me. There's a reason, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fine. But I stop and I turn around and I say, am I going to let my behaviour be changed as a result of that? How am I going to respond to this? And by changing that, I've completely changed the situation, and now we're still fine. So it's okay. Right?
Yeah.
Just thinking about some other things that you can do as well. So developing a strong relationship with yourself, integrating joy and excitement through your pleasurable activities, building confidence with habits, like we said, doing things consistently, small but consistently, practices to counter your self-criticism, alternative thinking, we've just spoken about that, and core mindsets. So these core mindsets, that's a really interesting one.
core mindsets, I think, goes into like your core beliefs and what
and
you
your
think of
values and what you
yourself.
hold really
Yeah.
important to yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a tough one though,
Really
because
tough.
it can link into a lot of the past stuff. I would say the building confidence through habits and creating a strong relationship with yourself can go hand in hand as well sometimes. So for example, telling yourself, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this, and that tomorrow comes and then you don't do that. That can lead to a negative relationship with yourself, because you know, when you promise someone else something, when you don't go ahead with it, it feels bad, like it doesn't feel good. Doing the same for yourself when you've told yourself, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, but then not actually going ahead and doing it, that then is the opposite of creating that strong relationship.
Yeah.
So making sure you're doing things that you're telling yourself that you're going to do. Sometimes our feelings can be very deceptive, like we tend to follow our mood quite a lot of the times, but actually following the plan, this is why it's so important, like my colleague said, having a plan so that you know, okay, I feel really down right now, or I don't really feel like doing this, but actually I've got X, Y, and Z in place. Maybe if I still go ahead and do that, I'll see how I feel after. And then actually ask yourself, reflect on that. Okay, how do I feel now that I've done that thing? And 9 times out of 10, you do feel a little bit better. It doesn't have to be, you know, 100%. It still is something, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Like we said, looking at the positive side of things, what did you get done instead, right? Maybe there's a reason you couldn't do that activity or what you had planned. And I think, like we said earlier, taking that minute to yourself to reflect. So if something doesn't go ahead, okay, it didn't go ahead, but acknowledge that. Acknowledge that you haven't done it and sit down and think, okay, what happened that maybe made me feel this way? What can I maybe change for tomorrow so that this doesn't happen again? What was going on around me and what do I need to change, right? Reflect, think about it. So take accountability for what has happened, but that's okay because you are the one who can then change that. So by facing what it is that's happening, what it is we have done or we haven't done, that's the only way we can think about how we can change it. But if we keep shelving it, ignoring it, keeping it in our mind and not writing it down, then we're not really doing ourselves a favour,
Yeah.
right?
Nice. What?
Compassion.
Yes. Yeah. I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Being kind is
Definitely.
really important. Yeah, it's really important to do that. When someone else comes to us with a problem, we're able to, like, you know, really reflect on that with them, and then tell them, you know, this is fine, like it's going to work out, it's going to be okay. But when it comes to ourselves, we can be really critical of that. So just remembering to be kind to ourselves as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the core mindsets, I think, touching upon what is important to you. So this can be different to everyone. Is it your friends, your family? Is it your religion? Is it certain values that you hold really important to yourself? Maybe by focusing on that a bit more, you can focus on building your self-confidence as well. So these are things that are completely individual to everyone. What one person does will be different to another, but what is important to you and how can you maybe contribute towards that a little bit more to help increase your self-confidence? So that's the point to kind of think about. What is it that you value and what is important to you that you can kind of contribute to as well as part of this?
And it takes time building all of this stuff, so just, you know, take your time, but make sure you're putting certain things in place.
Yeah. Like we said, you have the journey, you have the destination, and as long as you are taking a step on that road, you are on your way to something. No one's saying you need to be in a Ferrari, no one's saying you need to be walking on your feet, but take one step at a time and you are on your way.
Yeah.
But if you just stop, we're going to cause a lot of traffic. So come on, let's think about what we can do instead of what we can't do. I think we're tired of hearing our voices. Do you have any questions, anything at all that we can maybe help with based on everything we've spoken about today?
Anything that we've not covered that you would like answered, any questions? Or if you want to stay behind and you don't feel comfortable asking, we can have a one-to-one chat, it's fine, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Sorry, some of the links. Yeah. There should be a copy of the slides being sent over, so one of our colleagues will send them over.
So we have your details, so we should be able to
we should
send
be
you that.
sending them over, so it's fine.
In terms of why we are here, so we are from Brent Talking Therapies, so we do offer treatment for low self-esteem or even just low mood and anxiety in the first instance. If you would like some support or if you would like to find out if any support is available for you,
you can go on our website.
just find the corner on Row Green, and that's the number, email. You can just type it into Google, Brent Talking Therapies, and our lovely homepage should come up. You can make a self-referral using the website. You can give us a call or email us in, and we're more than happy.
Yeah.
to kind of
It is a
take
lot quicker to do a self-referral online, but if you wish to call in or you wish to tell your GP to refer you, you can do that as well. If you just want information as well, there's loads of information on our website on what we cover, what we can assess, things like that. Or if you would just like to go through an assessment, see what it is that we can support with.
Yeah, we do an assessment appointment in the first instance. So even if you don't feel like you want to access our service, there may be other services we can connect you to, what might be more suitable for you based on what you're looking for and what would be best for you. So if you just want to have an assessment as well, go for it.
Yeah, so no pressure. It's completely down to you guys. If you want to, very welcome to. But yeah. Any questions?
Pretty much it all from us. If anyone's got any questions that they don't feel comfortable saying in front of anyone, we will be here for the next 3 minutes. But other than that, that's everything from us for today. So thank you so much.
Thank you for attending.